Since the dawn of Western literature, there has been a tradition of referencing great stories, but at the same time building upon them and in a way one-upping them. In the 8th century BC, Homer wrote the Iliad and Odyssey, 2 epic poems chronicling the fall of Troy and King Odysseus' return home. For ancient Greece, it was like Infinity War, it was groundbreaking stuff. Then a decade later, a guy named Virgil reads these epic poems and goes, interesting, let me do you one better, writes the Aeneid. Fast forward into 1320 and you got a guy named Dante who writes the Divine Comedy, an epic poem of his journey through hell, up purgatory, and into paradise. Dante wrote that a spirit of the ancient world appeared before him and led him as his guide. His name was Virgil. Fast forward to 2017 and you got one of the most revolutionary stories of the 21st century, Coco, which follows a kid who travels the underworld with his dog named Dante. It is in our literary DNA to take from the stories that inspire us and then build off them while paying homage. And this couldn't be more true even in the video game world. Indie game developers especially can't help but reference and show love to the old video games that inspired them to create games to begin with. The latest and greatest example of this is Chucklefish Studios' newest game, Eastward. From the studio that brought you huge titles like Chucklebound and Starfish Valley, their newest game, Eastward, is a visually stunning throwback to some nostalgia-era games. If you took Earthbound by the arm, Link's Awakening by the lapel, and grabbed Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga by the, and Megazorded them together, you get the building blocks of Eastward. You got hack and smash combat, collecting items, upgrading weapons, dungeon crawling, some laughs, some friendship, baseball, and much, much more. What is Eastward? It's an adventure RPG. It's nostalgia, but most importantly, it's a direction. But to where? Let's freaking find out. Where the hell am I? It seems that new games that are love letters to classic games are more abundant than ever, and frankly, Eastward is no different. It wears its inspirations on its sleeve very clearly. For example, early in the game you come across this guy whose name is Miyazaki. Probably referring to Hidetaka Miyazaki, creator of the Souls games. You get some RPG vibes and cool urban locations from games like Earthbound. There's a whole cast of goofy characters like something you would see in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. And there's the grand feeling of adventure and exploration from a game like Legend of Zelda. Eastward is so horny for video games that they even put another video game you can play within the video game. This isn't a new concept, but it's probably one of the more robust game-within-a-game experiences that I've encountered. And the game's called Earthborn. And it's got like a manual and everything. It essentially functions as like an old-school Dragon Quest-styled roguelike. It took me like an hour and a half to beat the first part, which unlocks a second half that I haven't even touched yet. Look, I'm still trying to beat your main game, okay?
But don't you love video games, though?
Yeah, I do, man, but you gotta chill. Eastward's ungodly love for video games is the most clear in its just relentless dedication to its aesthetic design. You'll travel through a few major areas in the game, and every single one is just incredibly ornate, and with just particularly placed pixels. It's just stunning. I don't even want to bother describing it because I'll just fail to do it justice. Look, I get it if the art style is not your style, but you have to admit, it's a 10 out of 10. The music, which you're listening to right now, has a wonderful blend of video game nostalgia, but with evolved and modern instrumentation. There are some delightful and charming tracks, but then also some tense and foreboding tracks too. They even have some of those little jingles like The Legend of Zelda, you know, when you open a chest, or when you solve a puzzle or something. They're awesome. Out of all the locations, the crown jewel is New Dam City. New Dam City. Which is a big cityscape with shops, characters, and plenty of little secrets. And then at night, the soft glow of the neon lights just make it magical. And this is true for a lot of the locations throughout. They're all so beautiful, I wish I could just sit down and live in them forever. This is nice. You ever think about how we used to live in the world, but now we can live in many digital worlds? Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Different worlds with their own rules, social norms, advocates, executioners, agendas. We now get to decide if we want to spend time in the world or these digital worlds. And pretty soon, there may not be much of a decision at all. But sometimes we gotta get back in touch with this, you know? breathe in the fresh air. This is nice. 10 out of 10. The story follows John and Sam. John is the classic gruff, me-no-speaky type, who adopts a young girl named Sam. Sound familiar? She's a bright, cheery, and ambitious ball of energy. After living underground far away, City of Ember style, you emerge and seek to discover what this new world holds. But soon you learn of a terrifying force called the Miasma, an all-consuming dark matter that plagues the lands and eats everything in its path. And so you follow John and Sam as they travel eastward. You're equipped with a frying pan that you spank enemies with, a cute squirt gun looking thing that is apparently not a squirt gun, some bombs, and other cool items that you find along the way. The combat is where you'll find some inspiration from Superstar Saga because you can switch between John and Sam. Sam shoots these beams of energy that could stun enemies, and John deals with more of the aggressive combat. Combat can get intense at times with some pretty elaborate boss battles, so being able to and then it's a good time. There are even some environmental puzzles that you'll have to solve using both characters that you can switch between. But Sam as a partner really rounds out the experience, unlike this guy who just, come on man, it's just like a Goomba back there. Look man, are we gonna have a talk later? With all the damage you're going to be taking from the battles, you're also able to collect cooking ingredients, which allows you to prepare meals that give you buffs. That pan isn't just for spanking, my friend. The whole cooking situation is pretty much inspired by Breath of the Wild, and even though it's more simple, it's still got a bit of depth to it. Combine certain kinds of ingredients to heal more, or add temporary hearts, and then add a spice to give you a buff. There are a lot of recipes to discover too, so it'll keep you busy. Now this back and forth of the combat and the cooking are a great combo. The combat leaves you hurting, and the cooking leaves you searching for more ingredients. This is your bread and butter while you explore dungeons, fight bosses, and let me tell you, these bosses can get pretty hairy, my guy. Hairy. Neck, beard, and everything. They don't hold back. Now these mechanics are all well and good, but what about the story and narrative elements of the game? Oh hey, why don't we talk about these guys? The characters. The game is broken up into different chapters, and in each chapter you make a linear progression through different areas, meet new people, follow story arcs. You encounter a lot of characters that are little hot pockets of quirky energy, but also have some deep backstories too. While the interaction with these characters are often goofy and lighthearted, there are also some really touching and heartfelt moments too. The sprite work and animation of these characters really does wonders to make them feel alive and make you invested in them. I mean, look at these guys. Man, what the hell are you wearing? On the other hand, there are some plot points and character arcs that get a bit cliche and don't have much to do with the overall plot. And these uninspired parts pop a little bit more because the plot can approach some pretty unique territory, but it doesn't quite feel like it's making that push to take risks. This leads into my problems with the narrative of Eastward. I think when the story begins, you can see the possibilities of an original story that's learned from its predecessors. Unfortunately though, I don't think it quite sticks the landing. There are a lot of narrative pieces underneath the surface, and while they're interesting, the more you look at them, the more kind of incomprehensible and convoluted it can get. I know there's a cool story here, but the elements are a little bit cloudy, especially on the first playthrough. I think what it boils down to is consistency. There's a lack of consistency with the story's details and especially its pacing. The different chapters feel very uneven, with some chapters progressing the plot well and some almost bringing it to a complete stop. Now, I don't want to say this inconsistency is all bad, because on the other side, it really kept me on my toes a lot. I'll be real, throughout most of the game, I had no idea where the story was going to take me or what I would encounter next. Even in the game's last moments, I was still in wonder. To me, this lack of consistency isn't a deal breaker. It just holds a good story back from being great. But what is great about Eastward is its sense of place. The aesthetically rich environment around you, the lovely characters you meet, the relationships you build, make you feel a sense of home. In fact, throughout the chapters, you often stay at a place that you can call home for some time. I love when games do this. When a game gives you an actual home to inhabit instead of wandering around like a nomad, you start to cultivate ownership, a sense of belonging, and this makes the stakes really high when you're forced by the miasma to abandon your home and keep moving. With each chapter, you move further and further eastward. You can't return to the previous areas. While most RPGs will feature a sprawling map and allow you to travel anywhere at any time, the miasma threatens you by pushing you forward whether you're ready to or not. It instills an underlying feeling that you have to take in whatever's around you because you don't know how long it will last. This is an experience that I don't often see, and it's one that I appreciate a lot about Eastward. I think it's, I'm gonna say it, it's vibe. In a growing population of games that feature open worlds and sprawling maps where you can travel wherever at any time, it's refreshing to see one that grounds you where you are, and in order to escape danger and discover the truth of this world, you must only move eastward. Eastward, much like Squidward, is beautiful, full of life, and a joy to engage with. I think you should check it out. It's not without its faults. They are not enough to besmirch the fact that it's a nostalgic, whimsical, tense, and ambitious game. Support the indie developers who work really hard to realize their vision, and check it out. Also, while you're at it, why don't you check out the like and subscribe button? Woo! Hey, it's been a great show tonight, guys. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. We're going to play one more song for y'all. And just don't forget, we're Stay Young and Free Ozaki. Run it! Here we go. Yeah. Shirts in the back. Subscribe to the channel.